So as we talked about, strain is the result of the deformation. But what actually causes the strain? Well, that's going to be stress, right? The amount of force that's going to be applied to the rock is going to physically cause the rock to change. So this should go without saying, a large amount of force results in a lot of deformation. A little amount of force, right, is going to result in a little amount of deformation. So there's three types of stress, which again we can find at all three of our different boundaries. You can have compressional, right, which is squeezing, right? Of course, that's going to be our convergent boundaries. You can have tensional, which is going to be pulling apart, which should be our divergent boundaries, and shearing, which is what we see down here, which is what we have at our transform boundaries. So tectonic collisions usually make compression. However, we're going to see that we can actually see all three of these in here as our mountains are forming. But overall, mountains are going to be mostly as a result of compression. So compression occurs when an object is squeezed, as you can see here. So we've got one plate colliding into the other. So this nice initial rock that looked right like this is now bulged, right? So it's growing, right? That axis of deformation has changed there. And so as you can see, we're physically changing its shape. Tension occurs when it's getting pulled apart, right? So this would be the East African Rift Valley that we could see here. So this was once nice, one solid block, and as we pull it apart, right, it starts to stretch. And obviously rocks aren't very stretchy, so they also break. And then of course we can also get shearing, right? And shearing is where we have a rock, then we pull it in two different directions, just like what we see at our transform boundary. So maybe the change in shape is not as obvious here, but here is your original block, right? Well, you can see that it physically now becomes elongated, right? It's changing direction, changing shape there as well. Now, what's interesting is when we think about the stress inside of the Earth, deep down inside the Earth, it's actually really similar to what a diver feels. So stress is the pressure that occurs when the object has the same amount on all sides, so it would physically get smaller, right? So that's why you have to be careful going underneath, right, the ocean, because your body's feeling stress on all different sides. And as you go into the lithosphere, right, and deep down into the lower levels of the mantle, this is definitely the case, right? You're feeling equal amounts of pressure on all sides.